Friends, I greet you here from the study at Bishop's Lodge, each one of you in your own homes, and I pray that you are safe and well as we gather together again to hear the story of the resurrection, but this year in a slightly different way. But the gospel does not change, and each of the four gospel writers treats the story of the resurrection in a slightly different way. And this year we have heard Matthew's account of the resurrection of Jesus. And as I read through that passage, just 3 or 4 things emerged for me, which I wanted to share with you on this Easter morning, here in the midst of this strange time. Firstly, we're told by the writer that when the angel came and rolled away the stone, for fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. One of the commentaries I've read says that's the upside-down nature of the gospel, that the guards who are alive became as dead because they were so full of fear, and that Jesus, who had seemed to be dead, who was indeed dead, came to life and shared, as he always does, the message, do not be afraid. The guards unconscious with fear. The women filled with a different kind of fear, a fear which Matthew tells us is all mixed up with joy. And here in the midst of this pandemic, when fear is in the streets, the gospel asks us to lay hold on the fear which is mixed with joy and not to let it go. One of the privileges of being a bishop is that you get to do lots of confirmations and holding out hands over the candidates. The great prayer is prayed, which ends like this: and let their delight be in the fear of the Lord. The fear of love, the fear mixed with joy, is the gift of God to those of us who are afraid of death. And the same commentator, in looking at this passage from Scripture, says this: the crucifixion tells us what kind of God God is, the kind who reaches out, the kind who stands alongside the poor and the criminal, the God who reaches out to make a new family when things seem to have been broken. The crucifixion tells us about that God, and the resurrection tells us that that God is indeed the true God. That Jesus, in the way that he lived his life and in the way that he died, was vindicated by his Father, so that we know, as Michael Ramsey used to say, that God is Christ-like, and in God there is no un-Christ-likeness at all. And the third thing is that the women fall at the feet of Jesus when he greets them. And have you noticed, by the way, how gently and humanly he greets them? He simply says, greetings. Do you remember when Pope Francis was made the Pope? He came out on the balcony, the whole world was watching, and he simply said, Buenos sera, good evening. It's much like that here. The risen Jesus, the one who remakes the world, simply says, greetings. Or in the Greek, kairete, which means be happy. And they fall at his feet and they worship him. That's what the church does. Here we are in our own homes doing exactly that, falling at the feet of Jesus and worshipping him. The writer Stanley Hauerwas says, what makes the church is the worship of Jesus. And then, writing years and years ago, he says, we worship Jesus in all kinds of different ways. He didn't know that COVID-19 was coming, but he was right. The worship of God continues unbroken and this virus has not conquered it. And the last thing that I want to draw out from this reading from St. Matthew is the words of Jesus that he tells the women to share with his disciples. Do not be afraid. Once again, he says that to us all. Do not be afraid. But go and tell my disciples to go where? To Galilee. Not to stay in Jerusalem where all the power is, but to go to Galilee. In other words, to go home. It is at home that Jesus will meet them and equip them for mission and send them out. And here we are, friends, we can't go anywhere but home. But Jesus' promise is that he will meet us and equip us and send us out to share his love today and every day, in this time of coronavirus and in the future when once again we can hug each other. The unchanging power of the risen Lord sends us out. May that God, the God of life, the God who was vindicated in the resurrection, may that God bless you today and every day.